Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans. Welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we talk a lot about the home teams. We'll talk some Pelicans tonight as well. LSU, Tulane, Saints, all on the agenda tonight. We got a great panel as always. David Grubb of CrescentCitySports.com is our guest, along with Corey Johnson of Sports 1280. As always, Corey just getting off the air now, so he will join us in a few minutes. We turn our attention to our guest tonight. David, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you. Dave's always on the radio show with me. He covers LSU and the Pelicans for CrescentCitySports.com. Tell us a little bit about CrescentCitySports.com, if you would.
Well, I think we're the most comprehensive local sports website in the area. I mean, we cover everything from preps to college to the professional sports, and we do it in a very detailed manner. I think, tomorrow's our biggest day of the week with high school football, and we covered everybody, every game throughout the state. And it's just been an exciting thing to work with, legendary folks like Ken Trahan and Ken Berthelaw, and I mean, just really proven sports writers. Yes. And I've learned a lot since I joined that crew.
You got a pretty good gig. You got the Pelicans and the Tigers. So right. That's a pretty good beat.
When it first started, it was a lot tougher, but this last year or so, it's gotten a lot more interesting, a lot of fun.
Always great to have you. I understand we have some work in our control room right now. Somebody pretty close to you, huh?
Yeah, my little girl, Natalia. She's 10 years old, and she's a member of WBRC, her school's TV station at home. So she's learning a little bit in the control room tonight.
She's running the master control for us tonight.
That's right.
There you go, no doubt about it. Let's start off with the Pels. Training camp starts next week. We got a couple new additions. Of course, Julius Randle, Elfrid Payton will be part of this team. Jared Jack was just signed within the last few days, and Okafor was cut. What are your thoughts as this team kind of goes into training camp, just based on what you see right now?
Well, I think what we saw this week were indications of where Dell Demps thinks the roster is. So by letting Emeka Okafor go, that is a virtual certainty that Jahlil Okafor will make the roster. He's somebody that Dell Demps has had his eye on for years. Remember, before the DeMarcus Cousins trade, Jahlil Okafor was the target, and that just fell apart. But now they've got him on that low contract. And so I think they're looking at their bigs rotation, and they're saying with Anthony Davis, Julius Randle, Nico Mirotic, and Jahlil Okafor, we have a very solid core there. But when you look at the backcourt with the Elfrid Paytons, with Frank Jackson being a rookie this season because he missed all of last year with injury, they needed some more experience. And that was a question throughout the summer, was were they going to go find a veteran guard? You get a guy like Jack, this is his third stint in New Orleans, and he's had injuries, of course, over the last few years, but he's a guy last year that had a very positive impact on the Knicks offense. When he was out of the game, they shot worse, they turned it over more, they rebounded worse. So if he can be a stabilizing factor for 10 to 15 minutes a night, the way that they thought Jameer Nelson was going to be last year, and in a locker room without a lot of veteran leadership, and you're talking about a roster turnover that could be as many as 9 or 10 people from last season, you need veterans who've been through everything to kind of make that locker room congeal. So I think it's a good situation to bring him in. I think they like their roster, but at the same time, they want to see what they have before they make any other big moves.
Talk about the front court, because that seems to be where the strength of this team is.
Absolutely. I mean, you have obviously Anthony Davis, who's favored to be one of the top 2 or 3 candidates for MVP, just like he finished 3rd last year. Niko Mirotic came on incredibly strong down the stretch. Julius Randle has tremendous potential, averaged a double-double his first 2 seasons. Last year just missed out on one. He's a bulldozer, a guy who can handle the ball in the open court. He gets to the free throw line. He can defend all 3 front court positions. And I think that was key, is that you have guys who can switch. And then with Jahlil Okafor, he gives you a little bit of that old school center who can score on the low block, has very soft hands. His biggest issues in his career have been conditioning and defense. We've seen this summer he's gotten his body in shape. And with Darren Erman, he's not going to be able to slack it on the defensive end. And I think when you have guys like Davis and Randall around you, they're going to up his level of play too. Another
young former lottery pick added to the roster.
At a very low cost.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about $9 million for a guy who was a top 5 pick. And it is still, only 21 years old, 22 years old. I mean, that's a steal if he can perform to the level that they expect. And I think they're expecting somewhere between 17, 19 points and 8 to 10 rebounds.
Same could be said for Randall and also Payton as well. Both those guys former lottery picks.
Right. With Payton, though, you're looking at more of a reclamation project because he's a guy who fell out of favor in Orlando and then Phoenix just let him go.
Was it the system, though, or was it him?
He performs really well at pace.
Right.
We know that.
Yes.
The numbers show that.
Which is what they want to do.
Right. The Pelicans love pace. So we've seen him perform better with pace. He struggled on defense, but Rondo struggled with defense, so they don't lose a lot there. But the biggest questions about Payton are going to be his confidence, his ability to hit the outside shot, because he's been a terrible three-point shooter throughout his career, and they need to continue to have space on the floor for Davis. It's not even just about making them. It's about the threat. And can Elfrid be a threat? And then the third thing is when you don't have tempo, and everybody's not going to let you run. There are going to be nights when you're not able to keep the other team out of the basket. You're going to have to bring the ball up the floor more slowly. Can he run an offense in a half-court situation, or is that burden going to fall on Drew Holiday? So I think there are a lot more questions when you talk about the backcourt. You have a lot of inexperienced guys, a lot of combo guys, not many pure point guards on the roster, and that could be a situation that they have to rectify.
What about the small forward position?
Solomon Hill and Etuan Moore. And Etuan obviously is a guy who's better at the guard position.
Absolutely.
Was forced to play small forward and did very well offensively, but is a mismatch defensively. And then with Solomon Hill, you don't know what you're going to get. His best season was 9 points and 3 boards. And people are hoping he can get back to that. But even at that, with his price tag, it's not value for that dollar.
And of course, he comes off the books at the end of this season.
One more.
It's one more year. That's right. It's one more year with that. With that said, not a lot of money under the cap to be able to make any more moves, so to speak. Next year, the cap's supposed to go up $8 million, not this year. How do they fill a 3-and-D small forward? Is that even a possibility, or are they going what they have?
Well, this is the problem. So you have Niko Mirotic is in the last year of his contract. Julius Randle has a player option.
Yes.
If you take the contracts the way the Pelicans are right now, next year they'd have roughly, if Randle takes his player option and opts out, which of course he probably will, you're talking about the neighborhood of $26 million. Well, Randall's going to want double what he's getting right now if he performs.
Sure.
Mirotic is going to command between $18 and $20 million. So the question becomes, can you afford to keep both of those guys on the roster? So I think if the situation arises where a good small forward becomes available, I would imagine that Niko Mirotic would probably be a candidate to be moved, even though people love him and he fits in well with the team. If they can upgrade at the small forward position, as long as Randall's playing well and if Jahlil Okafor is outperforming his contract, Mirotic is your best asset to trade to get a small forward. Again, they'd probably have to throw in a first-round pick as well somewhere too.
Which is something they always do anyway.
Right. Dell Demps has only kept 2 since he's been the general manager of the team. So I think, there are concerns there about what they're going to do with the position, but I really think they want to see what position they're in when it gets to be around Christmas time, evaluate the team then, and if there's going to be a big move, it'll come in January.
We'll take a quick break. David Grubb of CrestlySports.com is with us. Corey Johnson of Sports 1280 coming up in just a second. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stick around.
Burkhardt Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
It's the only game I got to go to.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, we are joined by David Grubb of CressySports.com and my colleague at Sports 1280, Corey Johnson. Corey, how you doing?
Good, Eric. How you doing, man? What's up, David?
Great to have you on the show, as always.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming. Always like to start off talking a little bit about what you're involved in. Nobody does more editorials than you do. And, of course, you're with Sports 1280. Talk about the radio show, the TV show, and, of course, the radio show on TV.
Well, Eric, I've been doing aluminum siding lately, doing houses around town. It's really going good.
Yeah, well, I'm your apprentice, so I know all about it.
Right, hammering the nails. Now, yeah, I do a show right after you. You're on noon to 2, of course, on AM 1280 and 101.1 FM HD2. I'm on 4 to 6 o'clock, just finished up a little while ago. And yeah, a couple of times a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, I do some editorials on Channel 26 and their News with a Twist show. And they replay it at 11 on NOLA 38. So yeah, having a good time there.
And also your radio show on television as well.
Yeah, that's right. The radio show simulcast. It's 2 hours on the radio. The first 90 minutes are on Cox Channel 4 in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette, and on the charter system, Charter 333 in like Slidell, Mandeville, Covington, Hammond, Houma, Thibodaux, Opelousas, all over South Louisiana.
There you go.
Something's wrong with these people putting me on.
Corey Johnson with us. Corey, let's start off talking to you a little bit about Tulane. 31-21. They go down to UAB. They're 1-2 now. Tulane fans are getting a little bit tired of hearing about
31-21 or 31-24?
Well, it was 31-24, pardon me, 31-24. But they're getting a little bit tired of hearing they're so close.
Yeah, the honeymoon's over for Willie Fritz. That's a fact. The honeymoon period's over. There's no more excuses about, like last year, there were probably 2 games they lost that they should have won. And I think people a second year, they're rebuilding, we'll kind of let that go. The Wake Forest game was a game. I think Wake Forest is a better team, but I think Tulane should have won that game. And then the UAB game, how do you get down 14-0, 21-7 on the road at UAB? You can't have that. And UAB was, a senior-laden team and stuff, but still, the Wave was favored in that game. And they lose it by 7. They were actually trying to force overtime. I think the biggest disappointment for Tulane so far, and I'm not trying to put it on one player because it's beyond just one player, but Jonathan Banks is the quarterback, supposed to be the leader of this team, and I think was supposed to take it up another level. And he's sort of been the same quarterback since he's been at Tulane and hasn't taken it up that next level. So I think he's either got to do that, or we might see some of him and Justin McMillan. I mean, who wants to be thrown in the fire at the Horseshoe?
Nobody.
But Justin McMillan might get thrown in the fire. I mean, didn't play too much at LSU, and he could get thrown in the fire in front of 108,000 at Ohio State Saturday.
Yeah, Corey, I think that the interesting thing about Banks is his playmaking ability. And all we heard earlier in the offseason with the lack of depth at the quarterback position was he's got to stay healthy. I almost feel like it's been kind of pounded in his head. In the past, if it's not there, he's taking off, he's making something happen. He's almost, I don't want to call it hesitant, but he's not being the playmaker that he was maybe last season when you saw this team, again, a heartbeat away from going to the bowl.
No, that's why I think LSU fans get nervous about Joe Burrow running and not sliding. Just generally speaking, quarterback's a delicate position. You don't want this guy getting some little injury or major injury and missing time. Banks was just, doing what he's always done, I think, his whole career. Be it at Kansas or wherever he was, junior college or whatever. He's just an instinctive, athletic quarterback that's got a real strong arm, but not the most accurate arm. But I think when he just can pull it down and run, he's going to do that. But I know Willie Fritz and all the Green Wave fans are gnawing on their fingernails when they see that happen, because last year we saw it a couple of times. One injury was a little bigger than the other, and another injury was kind of minor, but it's enough where you're going to lose playing time. And Tulane can't afford to have Banks out for any extended period of time, even with Justin McMillan there.
And of course the weapons. You got Mooney, Ancalan, and Dolphine, but really not much more than that on this team right now. It's something, again, with the plethora of talent that we have here in South Louisiana and Louisiana, you would think that they would have a little bit more firepower. That's been an issue. The offensive line has been an issue, obviously. And, of course, defense, they lost so many players to the NFL.
Yep.
They haven't restocked that like you would have thought they would over the last few years.
No, it's going to take a while. I mean, a few years ago, I think Willie Fritz's first year, he had about 80 guys. They didn't even have, like, scout team and practice guys,
Guys
now they're over, like, 105 or something like that. Got walk-ons the whole 9 yards. But, yeah, Eric, now it's about, I don't know, when he took over, let's say they had, like, 5 guys that were pretty good players. They probably have about 15 now. You need about 30, that are pretty good college players. So you have an offense, a defense, and some key players that can come in and back those guys up, and they're viable players. The numbers just aren't there yet. But still, Tulane, and I'm not knocking the American Athletic Conference, it's pretty good. Sometimes it's Power 5-ish. You could say it's a better conference than maybe the 4th or 5th Power 5 conferences. But the Wave, they got screwed at SMU last year. They should have been in a bowl last year. But this year, it's kind of bowl game or bust, winning season or bust. There are actual expectations now on Ben Weiner Drive.
But with that expectations, I don't think Willie Fritz is on the hot seat. They just signed a new contract extension.
Not at all.
But again, the Tulane fans are becoming a little bit impatient.
Yeah, the honeymoon's over.
Yeah.
But Willie Fritz is not on any hot seat. There's no flame at all. None at all.
You mentioned it right. They go the Horseshoe this weekend. Going to be tough again to be able to take on Ohio State. But
they're only in a 35-point underdog.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer's going to be back on the sideline.
Yeah, exactly. I think the over-under is 69. I don't know. I keep seeing 55-14 in my head. The Vegas boys are pretty good on those over.
That they are.
It's scary.
They definitely
They
are.
don't lose money.
They don't lose money.
Dave, LSU 22-21. They are 3-0. They defeat Auburn over the weekend. They're 6th in the country. I didn't see it coming. I'm sure a lot of people didn't see it coming. You're talking about going on to Jordan Hare, taking on an Auburn team that you beat last year. You think Auburn's going to be loaded for bear, ready for that game, and wow, they pulled it out. Talk a bit about that game, and talk a little about where the Tigers are right now.
Well, I think you see LSU's start encapsulated in that Auburn game. The things that they do really well, we knew that they were going to do well. That defense is outstanding. You have difference makers at every level. At linebacker, you've got amazing talent there. You go out to Greedy Williams at corner, and now Delpit is coming on at safety. And Dave Aranda is proving every year that he's worth the money that LSU is paying him. I mean, Ed Orgeron better keep that guy in eyesight as long as he can, because programs are going to keep looking for him. But at the same time, offensively, that inconsistency is still there. I mean, LSU was literally an elbow away from losing that game. If their quarterback gets across that line, and depending on your angle, he may have scored. But, again, an under 50% passing performance for Joe Burrow. Made great throws on that final drive and led his team to the winning score, but under 50% for the season. The running game wasn't really that great. What you get out of Brissett is a guy who can get yards, but has no explosion. He's not the Darius Geis, Leonard Fournette type where he can break off 60-yard runs at a pop and just explode through the line. He's a good, steady back, but not a game breaker. You're still not seeing a lot of catches by the receivers. You have, I think the second most catches on the team is 6, and your leading receiver has 11. So they're not getting the ball. They said that the receivers were the strength of the team this year, and they just haven't been able to get him catches. Foster Moreau, non-existent at this point at tight end.
Yes.
The line is still in flux. I mean, they've gotten guys healthy, but you can still see a lot of pressure on Burrow from play to play. So everything that they do well, they did well. Everything that they struggle with, they struggle with. But in both this game and the Miami game, they made enough plays when they had to, and their special teams have really come on. Having a kicker that you're confident in has been, an exceptional thing for LSU, because for the last 2 years there was no confidence in the kicking game. The punting game has been strong. The return game has been good. So LSU's been fortunate that they've been able to work with a lot of short fields. in these 3 games. But you still have 3-0 is 3-0, and nobody should be blanching at that. You've got 2 top 10 wins. Nobody else in the country has that. And both of those were away from home. There's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
But you look at that middle game against Southeastern, and you only put up 200 and something yards against them when the week before ULM put up 500. And you've got to get you're dead last in the SEC in passing. You're next to last in total offense. You're not really putting up the points that you're going to need when you get to we know that stretch is coming. Florida, Mississippi State, Bama, and Texas A&M. Georgia. I mean, those are 5 games where LSU might be favored because they're at home in most of those. 3 out of those 5, they're at home. But the way that they've been playing, they'll be narrow games. They've got to be able to score more points. Winning at Auburn is huge. I think the Miami win will get devalued as the year goes on because it'll be a lot like Florida State last year, ranked in the top 10 early and then just fall off the map. The Auburn win is big, but it means nothing unless they do well in that 5-game stretch later this season.
Corey, two top 10 wins in the first 3 weeks of the season. First time since 1976 that has happened.
Yeah, 40 years.
Yeah, both of those, again, as David mentioned, away from Tiger Stadium. I mean, that's huge.
Yep.
Give us your overview, and then we'll get into some specifics about the team as well. Your overview of the
ditto what David said. He just nailed it. I mean, Eric, I think a masterful game plan, and I haven't been Orgeron's biggest fan, kind of a critic actually, but he had the team pumped up. He had them fired up. They go into Auburn with a great game plan. Ensminger's throwing it to establish the run because David's right. Brissett's sort of, if LSU had their usual backs, Brissett would be the 3rd or 4th one on this team. He's not really a LSU power back. He's not an SEC caliber starting running back. And I'm not knocking the kid, but he's sort of just a situational back. He's not some guy you can hand the ball off to and he's going to rip off 100 yards a game. Now you go, well, he had 100 against Miami. He had 100 against Southeastern. Yeah, but didn't really have the greatest game, especially yards per carry average against a tough team like Auburn in their front 7. But Ensminger knew this, and he knows what David and I are saying, and you believe, about the lack of strength at the running back. So that's why they threw the ball first. Burrow has been a rock. I mean, you got to give Ed Orgeron credit because I don't know if any coach in America, even like Nick Saban comes to LSU, is he going to abandon the quarterbacks he has on the roster, the 3 that were once there, and hey, I'm going to go get Joe Burrow from Ohio State. We have this major weakness. Or let me go get this Cole Tracy, this California kicker that's kicking in Massachusetts at a Division 2 or 3 level school. That no one gave him an offer coming out of high school. Let's bring him down. I don't know if any coach would have done that. So Orgeron did it maybe out of desperation, maybe out of smarts, whatever. And those 2 guys are the MVP of this team right now, Burrow and Tracy. Now, even though Burrow's not completing over 50%, he hadn't completed over 50% in any of these 3 games. Right. He's playing great at quarterback in this sense. No turnovers for LSU. The only college team out of 130 in Division I that don't have a turnover. And he knows how to get rid of the ball, rarely takes a sack. He's smart, he's heady. You can tell he's had 3 years of Urban Meyer quarterback coaching under his belt. And you also can believe that, man, he's almost the starter for Ohio State. It was neck and neck. It was a tight race. So I think they're doing a lot of things really well, Eric. Aranda is just really the straw that stirs that pot, as the play-by-play guy would say for LSU. Aranda, it's 10-0 all LSU. Then Auburn rips off 21 unanswered. It's 21-10 Auburn. You know how much be like, man, this game's over with. And then Aranda, the mad scientist, makes adjustments. In the final quarter and a half, Auburn has 89 yards, no points. It's just amazing what this guy can do. Plus, that defense has 11 great starters, size, speed, quickness, athletic, all combined, and then probably 6 guys that back them up that are starter types, SEC starter types. So the defense is going to carry this team. But if, like David said, if the offense can't get some points on the board, some offense, some yardage, just first downs. Yes. And I think Burrow's going to start completing over 50% of his passes. I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on. But I think teams are going to kind of do the opposite with LSU that they've done in the past, especially these SEC teams. They're going to be like, we're going to let Burrow throw it. You're going to have to, or we're going to stop Burrow throwing it. We're going to make you beat us running the football. And I don't know if LSU can beat a team running the football. It used to be the other way around. Run it all, we're going to stop the run because we know you can't throw. I think teams are going to be like, we're going to stop the, run because you can't run. And Joe Burrow's going to have to carry this team. And I don't know if he's going to be capable of doing that. The stretch, like David was saying, is ridiculous, Eric. And you got Florida coming up in like 3 weeks. And then it's just a gauntlet for 3 straight games. Thank goodness they're all at Tiger Stadium, but it's number 2 Georgia. Mississippi State, if they keep winning, they'll be top 10, top
Yes.
12. I think they're 16th right now. And then it's the bye week and then number 1 Alabama. So that's a tough schedule to get through.
Yeah, no doubt. With that said, the offensive line has been a real big question mark going into this season. Performed fairly well against Auburn for the most part. Still having some problems opening up holes for the running game. Your assessment of the offensive line, based on what we saw at Auburn, because I guess that's the offensive line they're going to try to go with from this point forward.
Well, they had some injuries and
Yes.
some suspensions and things like that, so they've gotten more of the group that they thought they would have. It's still an inexperienced group in a lot of ways. Mostly they just have struggled in cohesion. And there are big stretches of drives, and that's been the thing that causes so many 3 and outs for LSU. It's that one play where it's, where they just give up, whether it's a running play and they give up a -3 here, or if it's a passing play and they force Joe to throw it out of bounds. There's one in every sequence, it seems like, where the line just doesn't get it together. So, I think they're going to have to, that's the problem right now is they're bringing all the tight ends in to help.
Yes.
They're chipping with the running backs to try to get effective. And you're not getting a lot of guys out in the routes. So they're not getting the combinations of routes that they want to really open up the passing game. So that line has to get better. I mean, if LSU really wants to make a challenge at 10, 11 wins this year, the line has to get better, and they have to be able to run the football.
I'll tell you, I got better. Right tackle Austin Deculus.
Yes.
That kid will never leave the field ever again unless he's injured.
He had a great game.
He's going to play a year and a half, and after his junior year, he's going to go into the NFL draft. That kid is a monster and should have been starting earlier, but that's how they improved the line a little. And you mentioned Morrow a little while ago. He's just like a mini tackle. That's what he did against Auburn. He just helped,
Yes.
chip and kind of slow down those DNs for Auburn. But the line did a pretty damn good job at Auburn. I mean, Joe Burrow got clocked a few times, but generally speaking, they had a lot of time and protection for him. Auburn did not tee off on Joe Burrow. It was pretty amazing.
One of the best fronts in America, too, with Auburn.
Yep. Right. No, that front seven's ridiculous. And that front
that's
four is about as good as anybody.
Oh, I'd say the defensive line, is probably one of the top 3 or 5 in the nation.
Yep.
I think.
Is this an offensive line, Corey, you think will get better once they get cohesion as they play together? Is this going to be a situation where they're going to need help with tight ends and running backs that are going to be chipping all season long?
It stinks in the sense that for the second straight year, they've lost their number 1 offensive line.
Yes.
They lost him last year. They lost the new guy this year, Ed Ingram.
Ed Ingram, right.
So, I don't know, Eric. That's a tough question. Like I said, Deculus is an improvement. I don't think there are any more Deculuses on the roster where you have this potential guy you can plug in and he's going to be better. Tiori or whatever, the junior college guy, maybe not what they thought he was. It's going to take a little while for him to get better. Maybe he evolves, and in a month he starts, and he's like Deculus, where it takes the line up another level. But I think Morrow is going to end up with about 6-8 catches on the year, and it's going to be a 6-man offensive line with him being the chip guy all season long.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that right now. Is like that's where they've had their issues as edge rushers, and then a lot of times it's those jailbreaks right up the middle. They've had, a lot of pressure straight up the middle. So I think they're going to have to continue to game plan for the weakness of the line. Not weak as in it's the weak link of the team, but just those situational weaknesses.
And it's going to kind of be gimmicky, Eric. Auburn was kind of gimmicky. I don't know if every game you can go in and go, we're going to throw and 4 wideouts and throw the first 3 plays and do a little run play and throw. I mean, they threw the ball like crazy. It was totally unpredictable. Right. But that unpredictableness becomes predictable if you continue to do it and you don't have a running game. Right. So that only can last so long. I mean, I'm not knocking LSU 3-0, 6 in the land. Sure. Great win at Auburn, incredible. Ed Ogeron, masterful game plan. Same with Ensminger. But I don't know if it's sustainable throughout the whole year, especially when SEC plays. And not to be redundant and repeat myself, but I think teams are going to be like, we're going to shut down Burrow and make you run it on us. And I don't think LSU has a true SEC starting running back that can run it on these tough SEC defenses.
And this is the first time that, again, anyone really saw that spread offense.
Right.
Okay, now Ensminger's saying they're going to go to even more of a spread going forward. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of works out. They seem to go, and a friend of mine pointed this out to me, he was so right, with the more veteran receivers down the stretch, and of course these young receivers that have so much upside, those guys kind of sat in the wayside down the stretch against Auburn.
And that's when they were able to hit some big plays on the sideline. as they went down the stretch, because those in the first 3 games, there had not been many big plays in the passing game for LSU. But they were able to do that in the fourth quarter and move the ball when they really needed to. And the thing about Burrow, again, that is so impressive is that how much trust that offensive staff has in him to make changes at the line, to give him the freedom to adjust as they go out onto the field. And they're going to continue to give him the reins because he is so smart. I mean, he's a coach's kid. They talk that up a lot. They said he's one of the smartest guys in the meeting room always. So I think that's a key that LSU has not had in a while at the quarterback position. Again, even though his numbers are not gaudy, that level of trust at the quarterback position is something that few coaches are willing to give on the college level. And they really trust Joe Burrow, and I think that's going to be as important to those wide receivers as anything else.
What's weird about this offense, Eric, normally it's like, oh, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players from last year. I don't know any of these players on this offense. 4 wide receivers that have really never played for LSU. Running backs that have really never carried the ball for LSU.
Yes.
At least 3 offensive linemen that have really not played for LSU. Joe Burrow's never played for LSU. It's strange. It's weird how there aren't recognizable names, stars on offense from the year before. I mean, LSU usually has like 2 or 3 NFL caliber running backs, a couple of NFL caliber wide receivers, an offensive lineman or 2 that are NFL caliber. It's kind of MIA this year. It's an evolving thing. It's all brand new.
Well, they hung their hat on the defensive side of the ball. We do that going in. Talk about this defense. Chassalon goes out. There was a lot of talk that Thornton was going to get the call. Andre Anthony gets the call. He played fairly well against Auburn. Your thoughts overall on this defense?
Well, the defense is loaded. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like some unbelievable LSU defense historic or something. I think they still lack a couple of defensive linemen, maybe a couple of reserve linemen. They're going to build that D-line up. Linebackers are ridiculously good. Devin White's as good of a defensive player as anyone in football. And Rashard Lawrence, I always hear you, Eric, talking about Saints or whatever. You fixate on this, and you're 110% right about a nose tackle is supposed to be a disruptor that can get double teamed. Doesn't matter if he's making statistical plays. He frees it up for the DNs and the linebackers to make plays. And Rashard Lawrence is doing both. He's making plays.
Yes.
Tackles behind the line, pressure on the quarterback, and getting double teamed and freeing up Devin White and these linebackers to make plays. Aranda is just special. He's totally unique. I visited with him for about 15, 20 minutes at Saints camp when he came in to watch that, which is refreshing in its own. Wow, LSU and the Saints have a connection finally. It was almost like taboo. They never worked together before. Now this guy has carte blanche. He can show up at the Saints facility. His buddy's there, and he can go check things out. But just talking to this guy, I mean, just so impressive on, first off, we don't see much of him or hear from him. He could be a head coach. He's got a good personality. I didn't know that, and he's gregarious, and I think he could recruit, even though that isn't one of his strengths. I think he could because of his personality, and if he was the head coach. So, but Aranda is special. The defense is sort of typical LSU, loaded with athletes. I mentioned that size, speed, quickness, athletic combination, which maybe 10 teams in college football have the sheer numbers of athletes and players like that LSU has. So, that if LSU wants to win and continue to win, that defense will be the thing carrying them. As David said, if that offense can just get to, it's like the opposite of the Saints. Saints always had this top offense, and boy, if the defense could just have a pulse, could be viable, the Saints could be dangerous. We saw that last year. We're not seeing it this year. The opposite's happening. LSU's the same way, but the opposite way. The defense has always been viable, top 3, 4 in the country, if not SEC, whatever. And the offense is the thing this year that needs to be just viable, have a pulse. Yes. And at Auburn, they were viable and they had a pulse.
They were.
And I think that's what you're going to look for against Louisiana Tech this weekend, is can they sustain drives offensively? Can they get off the field again quickly defensively? And are they making some big plays in special teams? They have those opportunities against Tech to do that. And they should be fine-tuning at this stage as they get deeper into the conference schedule. Because they shouldn't, right now, they know approximately where they are. And you can tell that they're not satisfied. Talking with the defensive players after the Southeastern game, they were very big on, hey, if we have to carry the offense for 6-7 weeks while they get their legs underneath them, we're prepared to do that. That level of confidence without resentment is very important in a locker room. They are not looking at the offense with condemnation, and especially after that fourth quarter against Auburn, I think even more they have more confidence in Burrow. They already have embraced him. They love him as a teammate. But now to see him orchestrate something like that on the road in the SEC when he's never played in an SEC game before, I think that trust that the team has can be special. Now, again, if they don't get that together, if that offense isn't able to put up 27 points against Bama, 30 points, against Mississippi State, Texas A&M, they've got to be able to do that in order to really challenge for the SEC West title.
Southeastern, they had 31 points total. They scored 7 in the second half against Southeastern.
Right.
And only 6 in the second half against Miami.
Yeah, and La Tech's a lot better than Southeastern. La Tech's Skip Holtz. He's done a good job up there. 4 straight winning seasons, 4 bowl games, 4 winning bowl games in a row.
I heard you mention in your radio show you think they might be the second best team in Louisiana.
I think they're definitely the second best team in Louisiana right now. There's no doubt about it. It shouldn't maybe be that way. I think Tulane should be there, but they're still probably a year or two away. But, La Tech's very, very good, Eric. And I think if LSU plays like they played against Southeastern, that game will go down to the wire. La Tech's coming in with nothing to lose. They're happy to be in Tiger Stadium. They're not intimidated. They want to be there. And they're going to come in and play, I think, pretty relaxed, hardcore football. And if LSU goes into it kind of like Southeastern, like this is a joke, we're 3-0, we're 6th in the land, they could get beat by La Tech. I don't think it's going to happen. It is. It's a classic trap. It really is.
With that said, Ed Orgeron has had this team ready to play. All the distractions from off season, whether it was suspensions, defections, everything that went on leading into the season, and then of course, having to start off with Miami beating 2 top 10 teams in the first 3 weeks of the season away from your place. Talk about Ed Orgeron, because he's been a guy that some Tiger fans love to hate.
I mean, since he started, he's got the most top 10 wins of any coach in the SEC. And it's by a good margin. The problem for Ed Orgeron has been losing games he's not supposed to lose. Last year it was Troy.
And getting ripped by State by 30. Worst in the history of the series.
It's those have been his problems. Those every year. And of course, everybody wants you to get over the Alabama hump, but nobody's gotten over the Alabama hump. So I don't really hold that against him. You want to see better performances, of course. If they can beat Alabama, that's a great thing this year. But out of all the things to criticize him about, I think what we were worried about most was he going to let Ensminger run the offense? Because he really didn't let the offense. He did not cede control of the offense last year. He interfered a lot, and it did not perform the way it should have. And this year, it seems, at least it appears, that he's backed off and let Ensminger run the offense. And so they're growing into that. I think he's adjusted himself. You can see that the fire is always going to be there. That's who he is. But you're starting to see much more of not just being the character of Ed Orgeron, but there's a lot more subtlety to what he's doing now. The buy-in period of him trying to make sure that everybody believed he could coach this team is past, and now he's getting down to the nuts and bolts of creating a program in his image.
What worries me a little bit about Orgeron, and we saw it last year with Troy and Mississippi State, he's learning on the job. And this is LSU. It's like Ohio State or USC or Miami or Alabama. You want a coach that's not learning on the job.
Right.
And so he's still learning on the job. We saw that last year. And I mean, this might be a little nitpicky, but if you remember Ed Orgeron at Ole Miss, the last game he ever coached, it was Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Ole Miss was ahead 14-0. They told him before the game, you beat State, you keep your job. You lose, you're gone. It was 14-0 in the fourth quarter. They were at midfield. It was a 4th and long one, like 4 feet. And instead of punting and putting State way back inside their 20, maybe their 10 ideally, he goes for it, doesn't get it. State rips off 17 unanswered and wins, and Orgeron gets fired. No one's really thinking about this because they're thinking 22-21. I want to know I think it was the first quarter, when it was 4th and about 4 feet, and he's going for it. Was he pulling a Sean Payton, trying to draw Auburn off sides, or was he literally going for it? Because if he was literally going for it, that's the wrong call, okay? That's an emotional Ed Orgeron, one team, one heartbeat, I'm going to run through the cinder block wall for you kind of mentality. And he has to be, he'll never be Tom Landry, but you got to be in between the emotional Ed Orgeron that goes for it against Mississippi State when he's up 14-0 when he shouldn't have, and Tom Landry somewhere in the middle. And I think he's moved on from Ole Miss, but I'm watching that 4th and 4 feet, in the first quarter, and he's going for it. And you remember there was a false start,
right.
and it pushed them back, and they had to punt.
Yes.
Or kick the field goal, I forget
And
what
that
it was.
and that too has been one thing that they really need to clean up is their penalties. They have gotten penalized a lot over the last 2 games, especially, and they cannot do that as they get deeper into conference play. Discipline has, and most of those penalties have been on the offensive side.
Yep.
A lot of
False
procedural
starts,
penalties.
yeah.
So they have to get these guys in line because you can't have 9 penalties.
The penalty made them, I forget it was a kick, field goal, or punt, but the penalty made that happen.
Yes.
It pushed them back to 4th and 6 or 7. So I'd like to know, was that a Sean Payton trying to draw the team offside and we were never intending on going for it? Or was it him going for it? Because that's scary. Those mistakes will bite you on the rear end against Georgia and Alabama all day long.
Let's shift to the Saints. 21-18 winner over Cleveland. Now 1-1. And look, I'll be honest with you, it's a win, but it's nothing to be proud of, in my opinion. When you look at it, I mean,
the opposite.
Gonzalez misses 2 extra points and 2 field goals, and they gift you a win.
Cleveland lost the game.
No doubt.
The Saints didn't win that game. It was a gift. 2 missed extra points and 2 missed field goals. Come on.
That never happens.
Never.
No,
it's 18-all, and they missed the extra point to go up by 1.
Right.
Come on.
I mean, not ready to play this season thus far. Well, it was a much better effort against Cleveland, I will say that. When I went back and looked at the game, broke it down play by play, much better effort, but still not what you would see out of a team that everybody was talking about that was Super Bowl bound or a Super Bowl contender in this season. It starts up front on both sides of the line. Now, this past weekend, Unger got used and abused, and I've never seen that from Max Unger in a Saints uniform. He has been a rock in the middle of that offensive line. Gave up 2 sacks, could have given up a 3rd. You look at Armstead right now, he's playing very, very well. He kept Myles Garrett at bay all day long. Pete still kind of laboring with that injury right now, and Walford's not the player that he was last year thus far. So again, that offensive line, which was thought to be a strength of this team right now, not really playing up to the capability. The same can be said on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. The secondary was supposed to be, again, really the mainstay for that defensive side of the ball, and it has not been. Lattimore's not been the same player, and with Lattimore not being able to shut down one side of the field, now you can't roll a safety over to help Ken Crawley. So again, that hurts that part of your defense. Still not able to put pressure on the passer, even though, again, I can see some flashes from Davenport. He's got the athletic ability to be a good player. You know what's going on with Cam Jordan right now. He's going to get double teamed every single time that he's on the field, and there's nothing up front in the middle with the draft choice that you spent with Rankins, Yamada, who's been a project, and even trying to bring in this Taylor Stallworth for Davidson. They bring in Jay Brownlee back now. That nose tackle position, that defensive tackle position is non-existent for this team. The linebackers at times, last week I thought they played better than they did the first week, but still, nothing to get excited about, I mean, and now on offense, they become very, very one-dimensional. It's the Kamara and Thomas show, and if Breeze is not perfect, I'm not sure if they can win right now. Dave, I'll take you first. I mean, this is not what was expected coming out of training camp for a team that was going to start off against 2 non-playoff teams at home. Now you've lost in the division. You're going to a tough place to play in Atlanta, a hurt Atlanta team, but nevertheless, throw the records out when those 2 teams play. The Saints, I hate to say it, it's only game 3, but the Saints are backer against the wall a little bit here.
Yeah, obviously Sean Payton has had some tough starts over the last few years.
Yeah, this is the best start in 5 years.
Yeah, right?
One is crazy.
And especially when you start with 2 games at home. I think their biggest issues, one is, like you said, the balance. I thought that this team was built to be similar to the 2009 team, to be a team that was going to run the ball a lot and bring Drew Brees' attempts down. He said, since Drew Brees has been with the Saints, let's talk about this is year 13 with the Saints. He's only thrown less than 6,000. Was it 6,000? I'm trying to remember how many pass attempts it is, but there's only 2 he's had less than 5,000, I think, pass attempts in a season. And both of those seasons, the Saints won playoff games. When he throws the ball, averages more than 40 throws a game, they don't win playoff games. Yeah. And he's thrown a lot of passes in these first 2 weeks. They have not gotten that balance. Kamara has not proven to be the between the tackles runner that Ingram has.
But there's no daylight.
Right, there is no daylight.
He's making it all on his own. He is getting yards after contact.
They're using the screen essentially as the
running game, yes.
And they bring in Gillisette, and You know, he wet the bed and just hasn't performed. They don't the stable of backs that we thought they had has not proven to be so. Again, you're playing basically with one receiver in Mike Thomas. Again, had that one big play against Tampa, but has otherwise been, you know, not much of a factor. Ben Watson does what Ben Watson does. He's a good tight end, not a great tight end.
The tight end's been non-existent at this point. It's really been the Kaare and Thomas show. Ginn has been kind of a third option. But like I said, Breed's got to almost be perfect every single game right now.
No, he really does, Eric. And like Dave was saying, you can't have him throwing 40, 45 times a game because chances are that's going to be a loss. The biggest concern I have for the Saints is last year, was the defense really viable? Obviously they were viable, but was it real? Because before that, it was 3 straight 7-9 seasons. So it was a bunch of rookies, Lattimore and Williams and some other guys, some free agents. It was a new defense. The team's 3 straight losing seasons. The defense has been bad, I'd say 9 out of 12 Peyton seasons probably, you know, or not viable, not tough, especially against stopping the run up the middle. So was last year a fluke because teams were going in going, boy, it's a bunch of young green guys, it's a bunch of new guys. This defense has stunk historically. They're 7-9 3 years in a row. This isn't even a winning or playoff team. So I think there was a little overlooking
Plus
the
Saints. Quarterbacks they played last year as well.
Exactly. No, exactly. So
third place schedule.
Yeah, and a third place schedule. So that's a concern, Eric. You know, the last 4 years plus the 2 games this season, the Saints are 34-34. They're a 500 ball club the last 4+ years. So is that their reality? Or is it the 7-9 teams? Or was it last year's 11-5 team? So anyone that has confidence that it's last year's 11-5, I don't know, good for you, but I don't know if that's the case. I'm not saying it's the 7-9 teams either, but the defense is a huge question mark. And so far this year, the defense has not performed. We're looking at 7-9 again more than 11-5 with the way this defense is
And I think a lot of people felt good about the defense because you have a shutdown corner in Lattimore. He's not shutting down.
No, he's struggling
problems on
so
crossing
far.
routes. He seems to be not as physical as he was last year. He's not the same player thus far, just 2 games of the season. And look, we know it's 2 games into the season, but if you're going to be a Super Bowl contender, you got to be ready to go out the box, and you surely can't lose. With 2 division opponents in the first 3 weeks, you cannot get down in the division as close as we believe the division is going to be. Also, again, they got to find a way to stop the run and to be physical up front. And I'm telling you, in both games, they have been out physical on both sides of the line.
The whole Peyton era, haven't stopped the run and haven't been physical.
And that is a huge issue, and that was an issue they tried to solve in the offseason. Going after Ndamukong Suh, going after Wilkerson. Neither one of those panned out. And, of course, now you're in a situation where you're still trying to find someone to be able to plug the interior of that defensive line, and they have not been able to do it. For everything that was forecast about these linebackers, Demario Davis et al., they're just a bunch of guys right now. Nobody has really come out and say that when you look at the Saints team and you would think last year, you say, okay, as I mentioned on my radio show today, tell me what if an expansion team started tomorrow, they could take anybody off the Saints defense, what would they do? Well, maybe the first level they take Cam Jordan. Maybe they go after Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Williams. But after that, not really a lot of guys out there that other teams are coveting. And I think that's part of the issue, what you're seeing. They played well as a team last year. They were schemed well. Those guys that have to step up and play big, they haven't done it thus far this season.
Well, I mean, you know, again, part of the Peyton era, too, has been the lack of playmaking at the linebacker position.
Yes.
You have not had a real athlete, a guy who could make sideline-to-sideline plays in linebacking course since he's been there. You got two good years out of Jonathan Vilma, but he was a middle linebacker who was undersized, but just was really smart and made great plays.
Yep.
But they have not had those, you know, just exciting guys who could make plays in coverage, get interceptions. And the Saints, again, don't force a lot of turnovers. So we have not seen that pressure. You didn't see any of that on Ryan Fitzpatrick. You really didn't see a lot of pressure on Tyrod Taylor.
Although they did do a much better job. And what they did against Taylor was they rushed 3 a lot and they dropped 8 back into zone. You know, this team didn't play a lot of zone last year. This team played a lot of straight-up man-to-man. They played a lot of zone last week against Cleveland.
And that's when you know you're facing a team that doesn't have a lot of weapons. I mean, outside of Jarvis Landry, again, Cleveland is not the kind of team offensively that you get excited about. But you're still in a dogfight with them at home.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think focus, I think they did read some of their clippings. I do think they prove them right.
Which I never understood.
Yeah.
It just goes everything against what Sean Payton has done his entire time in New Orleans, where he said, block out the noise, worry about what's going on within this compound, within this locker room, don't worry about what anybody else is saying. All of a sudden he's got this very, very young team, and now he's saying, embrace what people are saying about you. Prove them right. To me, it was totally opposite of what we've seen out of Payton.
Yeah, the thing about the Saints, which is sort of troubling, if I'm the opposition, the game plan's so simple. I'm not saying you're going to win, but the game plan's easy. Run the football against the Saints. Run it more than you normally do.
Run until they can stop it.
Own the time of possession to keep Drew Brees and that prolific offense off the field. I remember the Super Bowl season run. I used to be amazed. The Saints would score real quick, and teams would abandon their offense. And I'm sitting there going, thank God. This intimidating Saints offense is our best defense.
Right. Well, the 39 turnovers were the difference for that defense.
Well, of course, that was
a great defense.
Yeah, you'll never see that ever again. But not 39. But just the offense would score, and these teams would abandon the run. And I'd sit there and be like, my God, you can run on the New Orleans Saints. Why are they abandoning the run? They're only down by 7. But the way that offense would click and it would intimidate people, and they're like, we're in a dogfight.
Right. It's an arms race.
Exactly. It's this high-scoring game. It's like, guys, run the ball and burn clock. But that's one good thing about Drew Brees and that offense. It intimidates teams where they sort of abandon it. But if I were a team, just like you said, Eric, run it until they stop you. And I don't know if the Saints can stop a good NFL running team.
Not consistently. They haven't shown up to this point. And then when right now you're looking at a situation where you've got Kaare and Thomas, and Brees doesn't seem to trust many other players. Part of that is he's getting the ball out quick.
Yes.
Okay, he's getting the ball out quick, and he's going to 2 guys that he knows can get open quick, and those are the 2 guys that he's doing it with.
You want to hear a scary thought? Get Carl Smith to be the offense coordinator for the opposition.
Yeah, well,
run, and 43-minute time of possession, like the Saints used to have.
7 points.
Yeah.
And Brees never sees the field.
866-3200. Let's head to the phone lines. Our guest tonight, Corey Johnson of Sports 1280, David Grubb of CrestleySports.com. Tom is in Metairie. Tom, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey guys,
Hey,
I wanted to see what you thought how the calls are being made by the refs during the LSU game. In particular, the 2-point conversion, they pretty much tackled the receiver on the right side, no flag. But more importantly, tell me what the rule is on the field goal and leverage. If you look at Auburn, they were climbing all over the LSU guys, and in the middle, over the center, one guy flipped completely over. So I don't know if you know the rule on that or not. I'll hang up and take a look.
Thank you, Tom. Dave?
Well, leaping is the I think would be the call that you're looking for, but you'd have to be using the leverage to land over the player
and going forward.
Right. So if that's a discretionary call, I don't think that was a big issue in the LSU game. It's still the procedural things that are much bigger.
Some will say Greg McMahon has done a really good job with these special teams. Milan here in New Orleans.
Yeah, the special teams outperformed. Over like I said, the last 2 years, people were afraid for LSU special teams. Now they're excited when that unit comes out.
Not to go backwards and being critical of Ogeron, but that first year and 2 when he's like, we'll just have special teams by committee. I'm like, really? You can't do special. Offense, defense, special teams, a third. They're all equal. Offense, defense, and special teams are 10% of it. So, yeah, McMahon from the Saints has done a great job. And Cole Tracy makes everybody look good.
Of course.
That kid's NFL bound.
And, of course, the punter as well.
Okay. I mean, he's pinning people within the 10.
You saw Auburn had an Australian punter, too?
Yes.
That's, Les Miles has sort of started this trend.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's back to the phone lines. Wallace is in New Orleans. Wallace, welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. How you doing, Wallace?
Hey, how y'all doing today, man? I want to know what's going on with Craig Robinson. Why they not starting him? And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Is that Ed Ogeron talking? I didn't understand a word. And I don't speak Spanish, Wallace.
Actually, I understood what Wallace said. He wants to know about Craig Robinson. And it is honestly something you can question right now. This is a guy that every time he's been on the field, he's performed for this team. He's done nothing but special teams. He's got 0 defensive snaps for this team at the linebacker position, kind of abandoned him. And look, he was brought in as a special teams guy.
Yep.
When you look at him and Nate Stupar, those 2 guys brought in to shore up the special teams a few years back, both those guys were critical in terms of the linebacker position.
After game 1, it was like bench A.J. Klein and put Robertson in. You know,
Klein had a good game last week, though.
No, he did. No, but that was after game one. Right. Everybody was clamoring for Robertson. He's a good playmaker.
No, he is a good player.
He's a good NFL player.
I think he's underrated as a linebacker,
Me too.
to be honest with you.
I think
I agree with you, Wiles. I'd like to see him on the field.
You know, they're very loyal to their guys.
Right.
And the Saints are not known for making a lot of changes. They just try to make those moves at the edges rather than any overhauls during the season. We'll see if they start to give some guys a chance, but I think they don't want to be viewed as making desperation moves right now.
You could argue he's the best linebacker on the Saints, and he's on the bench. You could argue
No,
that.
you could.
They're all kind of the
because
same.
Davis hasn't shown that much this year so far. Now, maybe over time he will. Again, it's 2 games. You don't want to get you don't want to get into a situation where you're throwing the baby with the bathwater in 2 games.
Right.
But much was expected of this team coming out of the box. To Kenner and Wendell. Wendell, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Wendell.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Your question? Comment?
My question is, it's a question and a comment. What do you think of the play calling of the Saints' last drive of the field goal?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why didn't he just run the ball and run the clock down to 3 seconds and just kick the field goal instead of passing? And then they also gave their team an opportunity to come back and maybe tie it up. It was bad play calling.
Yes. All right, guys?
I think they went with what was working.
Right.
I mean, in those situations, they didn't know what was going to happen. So I think you give the ball to Breeze. He's the most effective player. You let him make the plays. And they were able to do that. I mean, and you're counting on your defense to make a stop if you score. I mean, and if you're an NFL team and you have aspirations of winning a Super Bowl, you better be able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a problem. Mm-hmm. They would have loved to have been able to run, but they just can't right now.
No,
so you put the ball in the hands of your playmaker.
Ingram is now counting his money because, and I was one of those guys that were saying, well, maybe they won't pay Ingram because you don't pay running backs anymore. Ingram's going to make his money here in New Orleans. They've realized they don't have a power running game without him.
Sean Payton has never, ever for a single second cared about time of possession. Doesn't care about it one bit. He's just into scoring points, and that's cool. I get it. I mean, he's go down in history as one of the best offensive minds of the modern era of football. His offenses are prolific, there's no doubt. But, even LSU against Auburn, they ran it down to 2 seconds so there would be no kickoff or potential where the other team could do something. And the Saints are just about scoring points quickly and immediately, and they're not really concerned about time of possession.
But they should be.
But they should be. Last year, I mean, I don't know if they were worried about it, but, 2 running backs getting over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, and Breeze throwing for 40-something hundred yards instead of 5,000 plus. Right. That all helped the defense be more viable. But, you want to run it down to the end. You don't want to give teams a chance. Even Cleveland, man, they could have won that game.
Got about 20 seconds for each of you. Saints Atlanta on Sunday in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
I think Atlanta's a wobbly team right now. Their confidence is a little bit shaken. I think the Saints win the game, but I think it'll be another ugly game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ugly game too, and I think it's going to go right down to the wire.
As they always
I agree with David, exactly. And then just whatever Atlanta's got problems, it's at their place. And the big matchup to watch, which you'd normally be excited about, now you're hoping Lattimore steps up, is that Julio Jones-Lattimore matchup. Right. That's as good as it gets.
Well, the Saints are not going to go into a better time to catch Atlanta than now with all the injuries that they have. And again, you're talking about at least 4 starters that are down, maybe 4 to 6 starters that may not play. I mean, this is the time to catch the Atlanta Falcons. No doubt
Steve
about
Sarkisian has to be one of the most scrutinized assistant coaches in the league right now.
Well, let's keep him over there. That'll be a good thing. David Grubb of CrestlySports.com, Corey Johnson of Sports 1280. Thanks for being on our panel tonight.
Thank you, Evan.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also, you can catch us statewide. That's Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock every Friday night. You can always catch us at ericasher.com, where you can check out this show. And, of course, catch the podcast of the radio show. You can hear the radio show at Sports 1280, 101.1 HD2. And also, folks, you can catch me on Twitter at Eric_Asher. The show is noon to 2 weekdays. I want to thank our guest tonight, David Grubb of CrestlySports.com, also Corey Johnson of Sports 1280, also the WLAE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Trey Lopez and Naila Jones and William Hill, my director. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.